Good evening, welcome to Expat Insights. I'm your host Raju Mandhyan. Here at Expat Insights, we take external views of internal successes by foreigners, immigrants and expats who have made Philippines their home and are doing good in the Philippines either in business or in society. Today we have a couple, this couple's English and Dutch and English, and they have been in this country for over 20 years and they have been working in a certain area of this country which smelled a lot many years ago. So our guest today, Paul van Wijgerden. I don't know how to pronounce that's Dutch, but for short he says it's Paul VW, and his wife Anne van Wijgerden. She used to be English, now she's not anymore. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome Paul and Anne from the Young Focus Foundation.
Thank you.
Welcome to Expat Insights.
Thank you.
So tell us about yourself. 22 years in this country, Paul and Anne.
Well, we're kind of more balik bayans. We arrived in the Philippines in 1988.
Right.
And we went back in 94. We came back 3 years ago, so in 2008. So what, yeah, I mean, Philippines, it's been on our hearts all those 20 years really, so we never really...
It's been in your hearts.
It's been in, yeah, you know, we saw in Holland, back in 88, we saw in Holland some pictures of Smoky Mountain. We saw the poverty there.
In 1988, it was still the old Smoky Mountain.
That's the old Smoky Mountain, yeah. That's the Smoky Mountain 1, they call it.
Yeah.
Actually, the new Smoky Mountain we talk about now,
Yeah.
it's officially not you know, it's officially not Smoky Mountain. It's it has another area, but we call it Smoky Mountain too, simply because of everybody knows Smoky Mountain.
Yeah. I just want to bring one thing to attention here. Today we do not have those little subtitles which says what our theme is. Our theme today is going Dutch over poverty, which of course Anne will explain what it means. So if you don't see those little notes and names, I'm sorry for today, but starting next week we'll have it back. So something's wrong with the machines up here. So our topic today, going Dutch over poverty, especially the one in Smoky Mountain. So sorry Paul, I had to announce that one. So 1988 and Smoky Mountain 1 and 2. Yeah? And what's your outlook on this?
Yeah, it's coming back 3 years ago was like having a second chance, because we had to leave back in when it was 94 unexpectedly, for health reasons. And at that time, we were young then, and we thought in terms of 3 months, 2 years. We said to people, well, we'll be back in 3 months. But before we were back to live, it was 14 years.
Yeah.
And as Paul says, in that time, the Philippines never left our hearts. But for much of that time, we thought we couldn't live there anymore. We wouldn't be able to live anymore.
Back in Holland? But
back in the Philippines. We thought that was a closed chapter, and we'd somehow help from where we were in Holland. So when we were able to come back here, it was, as I say, like a second chance.
Balik bayan.
Yeah.
Balik bayan. Now you said you were young then, and I'm kind of against that thought in your mind.
Younger then.
You were younger then, okay.
I got hair.
But you're Dutch, she's English. Where did the two meet? Where did the twain meet before you got here? Did you come and meet here? Did you meet there? And then you decided to come to the Philippines? What brought you here, both of you together?
Well, I think Anne, you know, still remembers the romantic story of that.
Oh,
I mean, for me, it's
the
completely forgot about it. Yeah.
Yeah, we actually met in Amsterdam, Holland. So we were part of an international missionary organization. We were in different departments, but we shared the same office. I was still fresh out of England. He was this Dutch guy that I was actually initially terrified of, because he was so honest. And,
sorry,
you know,
he does look terrifying.
he was terrifying in the sense of so direct and honest, and I wasn't.
Oh, in terms of the cultural background.
Yes, and he would constantly be giving me tips, you know, friendly tips on how I should look like.
Or how you should behave,
Well, no, that I should cut my hair, that I should wear a different colour clothing, because he was trying to help me. But as an English person,
he knows about hair.
He knows about hair.
Thank you.
But he's a photographer. That's his background.
Okay,
so
there you go.
Visually, he could see I needed some help, and so wanted to help. But I'm being English, I'm not used to people making those kind of comments.
Sorry about that, so I'll withdraw the last one.
No, but it was actually time that I still had hair, right? So I mean, 28, 29 years old. So I knew about hair.
What was the mission that brought you here back in '98? Okay. You were married as a couple, and then you came here. What was it that brought?
I guess it was something deep inside us. I mean, at least in me at first, until I got to know Anne. I'll explain to her. But really taking care of the poor, or that we in a real privileged country like Holland, that we had everything. And then you see those pictures on TV. That time media was not as extended as it is nowadays. So you see those pictures on TV. And you just feel a responsibility. You just feel, I should be part of this. I can do something with my talents.
Yeah.
And being a photographer, graphic designer, it's not something that you don't go to a poor area, you just take photos, and in that way you think that you help people. So that was a bit of a I kind of regretted that I didn't have a medical education or that at least I could really help people. I felt like being a photographer, I couldn't do anything.
So you were taking pictures that were bothering you.
It's more the conscious, really. I mean, just the awareness of the fact that there are poor people around the world, and I live there in Holland, privileged, and just the awareness. I just felt the responsibility. I guess being young, 28 years old, I guess is you have an idealistic view on that.
Burst of energy.
Yeah.
I must confess, I come from a poorer country than Philippines, and where I come from, of course, we have been influenced by many cultures, and one of them was the story of the Buddha. The Buddha also saw poverty and death and sickness, and suddenly he switched from being a prince into kind of a leader of thought. No, so some kind of a transformation went through him. I want to know from you. You said that something happened to me, something struck inside me. Could you paint a picture about what happened to you when you saw poverty and you said, I'm coming from a very rich background or a good heritage, and I want to change this. What was that switch? Can you paint a picture of that switch for me?
I think for me personally, it was more in a way the example that Jesus, the way that he lived. In the Bible talks about Jesus coming from a poor background. Yeah. Then he helped the people and he supported the people. I think that kind of identification with him. That I thought, that really speaks to my heart. That's the kind of life that I want to live. I mean, I probably will never be able to live like him, but it's just something that really touched me.
You can make the effort, though. You can
at least I can make the effort, and I think all human beings have somewhere that responsibility.
And you, Anne?
Yeah, I mean, it was actually through meeting this terrifying character, Paul. Was
terrifying but sensitive.
No, but in the end, of course, we fell in love and things changed.
That's cool. That's cool.
And we'd been in the friendship with Paul up until then. I'd become a Christian at the age of 16 back in England, and from a very pretty agnostic background. Yeah. And I was. Pretty insular in my faith, in that I was thinking, okay, you get saved and you go to heaven and that's it.
It's a very simple rule, it's a simple formula.
Yeah, and not really looking further afield. And then through talking to Paul, through reading the right books, and actually through reading the Bible and looking at Jesus again, it was almost like a second conversion, and seeing how much passion and compassion there was from God's heart towards the poor, and then you can't help but be affected by it. Yeah. And then I started to realize that I'd had a very, very narrow view of how God is, and almost to the extent where I thought he was above feeling, beyond feeling, and then you realize something as like a death on the cross is excruciating, and if anyone feels it's God, and if anyone is concerned about poverty, it's him. And out of that, so not out of sense of guilt, and not out of sense even of pity, but just out of a sense of love and excitement, wanting
a much more powerful,
what can we do? And so that first step was simply to do a primary healthcare school in the it happened to be in the Philippines. It happened to be held next to a massive garbage dump. So you were there learning intensely and then practicing. It sounds very crazy, but practicing on the people on the garbage dump, and then of course you fall in love with the people and you can't leave. So that's how it began.
Okay, great to hear those stories. Very sensitive, very terrifying at the same time. What we'll do is we're going to take a break for a minute or two. But before we do that, no, I'd just like to tell the audience that we're going to talk about what Paul and Anne are doing towards not really eradicating poverty, but trying to reduce it step by step. So that's the discussion we'll have once we come back from the break. I'm your host Raju Mandhyan. Please stay with us, and I'm with Anne VW and Paul VW. Stay with us. Welcome back to Expat in Science. I'm your host Raju Mandhyan. We are still talking about going Dutch over poverty with Paul VW and Anne VW. And I'd like to understand, can you explain the phrase going Dutch over poverty? And you're an English teacher, a former English teacher.
Yes, well, as you know, going Dutch is a phrase that means sharing the burden, sharing the price. And just the idea of, well, it's actually something that's developed within the way we think, also with the way the organisation we're part of, how we run things, is we believe passionately about partnership. Then we're not here to promote us and our little organisation, but we can only be effective as we partner with other organisations. And what's been so encouraging in the last, coming back these last 2 or 3 years, is that the interest and the involvement of Filipino businesses, churches, individuals, NGOs. We can be so much more effective.
All putting the shoulder to the work you do.
And they want to help.
So give me a big picture of how. You also mentioned life is beautiful. I mean, the moment you saw me and I said, "How's life?" and you said, "Life is wonderful and beautiful." But what part of this beautiful life is poor? And what are the characteristics of this poverty that exists around the globe? How massive is it, and how big is the challenge?
It's beyond human comprehension. I mean, it's now with all the media we can see almost too much. It's, if you really, really care, you won't. Yeah, the danger is you won't sleep at night because the suffering, the poverty is so overwhelming. And that's the danger, that's the risk almost, that if you want to care and if you open your heart to the reality of poverty, you have to in a way shut down to protect yourself, and then do nothing. And the secret is to do something. Right. And they have the saying, it's actually in Dutch.
Actually in Dutch, okay.
But the idea is that if one drop doesn't change the ocean. But in a sense it does. To give you an example, when we were first here working on Smoky Mountain, the first Smoky Mountain, you'd walk over and you'd see the typical sights and scenes of abject poverty, and yet a community of people who were smiling, who were carrying on with their lives. Wow. They weren't having, life wasn't always wonderful, but in the midst of that, they managed to find human dignity and a life.
Respect and love, the love that he mentioned.
In the midst of it all. Yeah. But the poverty itself was shocking. The scenery was shocking. The circumstances, absolutely shocking. The smell, sometimes unbearable. Years and years and years later, we come back and we walk on Smoky Mountain 2. Smaller scale, but exactly the same scene.
Yeah, smaller picture, smaller frame, yeah.
And then your heart sinks and you start saying, well, what's the point? This goes on. What is the point of all this effort? Here it is again. But then you stop and you think and you remember those individual girls and boys who are now, they've been sponsored through their education, they've had a decent education, they've been to college, they've got normal jobs, they've got the opportunity, the chance of not being scavengers like their parents on a garbage dump. And you remember those individuals and then think, yeah, of course it's worth it. So doing that little bit, okay, you might not eradicate poverty from the world, but you can sure make a difference.
You mentioned that poverty is humongous, it's big. You didn't use the word humongous, but it's pretty big and it can be scary. But yet you told me that in that Smoky Mountain part one, the people there had human dignity, they had respect for each other, they were a community, no? So from those two perspectives, huge, ugly and humongous, and yet a sense of respect and dignity for the people and a sense of community, how would you define poverty then? In this little scenario where it looks ugly to you, it smells ugly to you, yet there's respect and dignity. How would you define poverty then? Would it be money? Would it be material goods? How would you define that, Paul? How would you define the poverty that we're talking about going Dutch over?
Well, that going Dutch is indeed a saying that Andy has brought up, and I'm not quite understand what they mean by it, because going Dutch is a different meaning to me. But the poverty in the Philippines is, or the poverty especially in Smoky Mountain, it is something that, I mean, let's put it this way. Poverty has several levels as well. So if you walk a Smoky Mountain, you see let's say the higher poverty class or the lower class and the lower
So multiple
class.
Layers of poverty.
Yeah, there's definitely layers.
We're still talking of non-spiritual poverty. We're talking of material needs. No?
But in that you have indeed also different levels. So if we do our work on Smoky Mountain, we actually focus on the poorest among the poor. If you look at the Philippines as a whole, we know that the poverty is quite high, the poverty rate. And
from the perspective of a Dutchman, from the perspective
then at first you think everybody is poor here.
Yeah.
And at the later stage, you're aware that you should not use yourself as the beginning
as
point,
a reference point.
As a reference point.
Yeah.
And so now when I look at the poor, when I look at poverty on Smoky Mountain, and I see different levels, and I do realize I can help this person, but I don't need to help that person because this person has more need than the other person. And that sounds harsh, but obviously you have limited resources, so you have to make choices. But you see the real poverty when kids are affected, and when kids are being treated in a way. I mean, they have to scavenge through garbage, or they have to do some charcoal burning, what nowadays a good income is, where they work in the smoke, and when you hear that the lungs are not functioning properly. I mean, that's a different kind of poverty when you walk around Manila. And you see squatters around, so there's a difference there, and I think our compassion is actually more towards the poorest among the poor.
So you're defining poorest of the poor as people who have to scavenge for a living?
No, I wouldn't say that all scavengers are the poorest of the poor.
Right.
I think that you have to more look at the situation back home.
Inside their homes.
Inside their homes, to get to know the people, get to know the kids, see if the children have education or not. See what kind of medical problems there is in the family, or is it maybe a teenage girl that is pregnant, and there's no husband
multiple
around.
Challenges at the same time, not just
There's
material
a lot of
needs, but also social challenges.
Yeah, it's not a matter of money. It's just if you look at the programs that we are having, most of our workers are social workers. It's not necessarily people that just provide money or do or medical. It's really social
counseling,
work.
coaching.
Yeah.
So of the 6.5 billion people on Earth today, or 6.7, multiplying really fast, going to 8 billion very soon. How many of you would you regard to be poorest of the poor? A ballpark.
That's so hard to say,
Yeah.
right? Because indeed the reference point is indeed always of course the United Nations of course has some measurements, and I think we all have different ways of looking at it.
Right.
But for me, not being able to develop your talents and your gifts as a child in the first place, that I would see as limited possibilities, and I would that's where my heart is.
That would be worst scenario
I
for
definitely
you.
want to see children to be developed with the talents and gifts they have.
Right. How about you, Anne?
Yeah, indeed, that was what I was thinking. Is when a family or an individual just doesn't have the opportunity to educate their children. Yeah, and when health issues come up, they just don't have the money to get the medicine or the operation.
Polio prevention,
that kind of thing. But having said that, I think it's a very interesting question about what is the poverty, because
the first one, the big question that I asked.
Yes, the other side is, and that was our experience when we first came here, was you first are shocked by the physical reality of the place, and then you get beyond your shock and see the faces of the people. You see the people, start seeing the people, and you can't help but noticing that there are more smiling people on a garbage dump than in your hometown back in England or in Holland. And then you think, we have another kind of poverty, and that's another story. Another story. And it's not to make light of the real issues that people in those kind of circumstances have to face every day. But it blows away any philosophy you have or belief you have in materialism, put it that way. Because the whole idea of material goods providing joy and pleasure, and that's the basis of your life, and then you go to a place like that, then all those people should be walking around utterly depressed.
But
they're not. So for us coming here, has. We're learning stuff. It's not just we're the big white missionaries come and in a patronising, paternalistic way pouring our resources in. We've come here, but we've learned more than anything.
Paul answered that question for me when he said the reference point changes. You always use your reference point. No, now we understand. I accept your answers. They sound pretty good to me. I mean, for me, at least where I'm coming from. Now, what should society and government do? And you are playing a part. You're putting in your 2 cents worth and more. What should society at large do? People watching the show, people on the street. What should we do? I mean, should we just put dole outs, or should we take active action? What is that big action we can take together that can change the situation a bit, or at least add that drop into that ocean? Massively, not just one drop, but buckets of it many times. What can we do? I'm sure doing what you're doing, you probably have an idea that, hey, if so many more of us did this, this would change. What would that be? Was that a long question for you? Sorry, descriptive.
It's a good question.
Yeah, it's a good question. Okay, I need to understand, because we'll put this information out. Maybe somebody will hear this.
Look, stop, care, look, open your eyes, open your heart to your situation where you are.
Yeah.
And you can do something unique where you happen to be. You don't have to be some amazing saint somewhere else in
Bill Gates.
Where you are, you have unique opportunities, and nothing is too small. You have to start from where you are, not from where you're not. If you see what I mean.
Shouldn't I get concerned about myself?
Of course.
That, hey, if I start doing this, then maybe someday down the line somebody will have to look after me instead of me looking after people. Should I get concerned about that? Where do I draw a line saying that, I think I need to look after my own needs first before I look after the needs of the world?
That is a very fearful, paranoid attitude.
Fearful, paranoid.
If that's how you're living, if you think...
I'm sure people go through that in their mind, no? So where do you draw the line? Where do you draw the line and say, I need to wear this pair of jeans, I need to wear the jacket, and I need to have my good
you have 2 jackets, you give one away or something. No, I think it's not something you can translate into amounts or whatever. It's just a matter of a heart attitude. Whether you can give a little bit or a lot, it doesn't make so much difference. It's definitely more of an attitude, I think.
What would you recommend the Philippine government do? Let's bring it down to a smaller perspective. No, what can the Philippine government do? It's not as bad as in Africa or India over here, no, but it still is. It does exist. And what are the government policies around it, or what would you recommend they be?
I think we have to be honest and look at the background of the Philippines, where, let's say, after the Second World War. A bit later than that, that the educational level was much higher in the Philippines than it is nowadays. It has gone down drastically. And every year when you open a newspaper, you see alarming numbers of, there's a shortage of this, shortage of that. And I think that the Philippines, of course, with the big amount of children, we have lots of children here, lots of young people. But there is not enough really invested in education throughout the years, and in order to catch up on that will take so long. It's not something you do in a year time. So I guess we got behind years back, and I think that's what.
So they should focus on more. The government by itself should have policies which should focus on education more.
And of course we are more from a, let's say, social background, being from Europe. Where you don't necessarily pay for the education, but also the government takes care of you. And we've seen the fruit of that. And of course, from other parts of the world, you don't have that. And yet, I believe that that's an important role a government should play in a country.
Yesterday, my daughter graduated from high school.
Congratulations!
Thank you very much. She's turning 18 soon, and I have 2 kids who have graduated college, and they are out into the rat race. No? Now, education will bring them up to the level where they become graduates, they go out from further there, but what are they doing to change the world, and how does that help? Education brings them to a level where their understanding improves, they become a little more emancipated. How do they change poverty? They're looking for jobs, they're looking for survival. Government policies, if education is only focused, what about jobs?
Well, if you only focus on that one person and said, okay, you have a person educated, now what about jobs? Obviously, when that is worldwide or nationwide, you automatically have a change. It's all the individuals that will make the change in total. Of course, we are dealing in this country with other issues as well. It cannot be just the education. We have corruption. We have a whole lot of other issues. But for the individual to start off with education and understanding what it means to survive, and
Right.
understanding to think more than one day at a time. Right?
Okay.
Because what are we dealing with every day on Smoky Mountain? It's really a one-day survival. But then
Yeah.
people have also difficulty to think further than one day.
Yeah.
So they even need to be educated in it's also a mindset. It's also, let's say, life skills.
Yeah.
It's not just mathematics or English or science or whatever, but it's educational. You have to see that in a wider perspective than just
Yeah.
that. And that's what we are in a way doing within our projects. We send them to school at the same time.
This is with Young Focus.
That's actually with Young
International.
Focus.
Okay.
Sorry that I go ahead of time.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's indeed we give them finances, let's say, to send them to school.
Yeah.
Besides that, we have social workers who are
Yeah.
dealing with the kids, and they have training in life skills. They have training in, but also English and mathematics.
Right.
But many other issues of life as well. So not just
Entrepreneurship, survival,
yeah,
etc.
yeah,
etc.
just anything.
So
related.
education is the key. Education is the first domino that will break the pattern of how the world is growing. And so now you can tell me about Young Focus, because you introduced it without me asking about
That's
it. So
right. Sorry about that.
okay, no, it's okay, fine. It's okay. This is your show.
Yeah.
So tell me about Young Focus. How did it come about? And give me a picture. Give me a profile on Young Focus.
Okay. Well, back in 1992, we were here in the Philippines.
This is when you became a balik bayan.
Well, no, before that, yeah.
Oh, before you
so
left,
that,
okay,
So
yeah.
back in 1992, we were working in the Philippines with an organization called Youth with a Mission, and at first we worked in healthcare. And,
Yes.
Giving shots to kids, medical treatments. I got a bit frustrated with the idea of helping someone, yes, but then the next day or the next month the child would come back or the mother would come back. So I
Right.
didn't really see a change in the community life.
Right.
And so I thought that education would be a better thing, and it's a longer investment, 6 years elementary,
Right,
4
right.
years high school, 4 years college, but eventually it will have more effect. So we started in the educational programs, providing sponsorship for children. We got quite a few sponsors from Holland, so we decided, since they're speaking Dutch in Holland and not English, and our communication was in English, we decided to have a Dutch group that kind
Yeah.
of would support us working here. And we just called it Young Focus. There was no intention actually
Yeah.
to start an organization that would eventually end up here. It was
Yeah.
just a support group. Back in 1992, so all the way up to 2007,
Yeah.
we were, through another organization, we were sponsoring children, but we didn't do anything ourselves. We just, channeling funds
Yeah.
to the Philippines.
Yeah.
And back in 2007, we started in the Philippines.
Well, I want to ask Anne. Anne, was it easy for you to get convinced to make the shift from healthcare to education and focus on Young Focus?
Not at all.
Not at all.
And to be honest, that's when we were involved, after we'd finished the healthcare school and we'd just started to put into practice what we were learning. I was pregnant with our first child,
Yeah.
so I was rather busy
Joshua.
with Joshua,
Yeah.
and so it was really Paul who was practicing what we were learning.
Yeah.
But no, absolutely no problem shifting
Okay.
at all.
All right. Let's take a little pause one more time. This second break, and we'll come back and get a little more in depth with Young Focus. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a break, and we'll come back with Paul and Anne talking about going Dutch over poverty. Stay with us. Good evening. Welcome back to Expat Insights. We are still going Dutch over poverty with Paul and Anne BW. And Paul, can you share, or Anne maybe, can you share us a project that youngfocus.org is doing currently, or that's your most successful project? Anything you want to share?
It started off with the school sponsorship, and that's what we think is
In Tondo, in Smoky
in
Mountain.
Tondo, Smoky
Okay,
Mountain.
Yeah.
So we are basically sponsoring elementary kids, high school kids, and college level kids.
It's a school that's existing right now.
yeah.
Brick
So
and mortar. Yeah.
That's
It's
right.
not
We-
so much a school as it's a we
The
have a
process.
student centre. We sponsor kids to the local schools and colleges.
Oh.
We have a student centre where we provide extra tuition, extra stuff, a
Right,
library
right,
where
right,
they can
right.
come and use the computers, do their homework assignments.
Wow.
But we sponsor them to all the schools and colleges around about.
Wow. So funding and a home from where they can take off. Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, providing the means to stay at school, because that was the
Yeah.
problem at the beginning.
Fees,
for many
bags,
years.
shoes, yeah.
But even with the sponsorship, being sponsored to go to school, there was still a very discouraging level of dropout, kids dropping out of school, because they needed more than the money to go to school. They needed extra English,
Social
they needed
support.
extra math, they needed social support. Their families, their parents needed talking to and supporting.
Right. Oh my God!
And they needed a library. They needed a location to do their homework.
I can imagine.
Can you imagine living in a kind of hut or even kind of a makeshift place by candlelight? You're going to college. How do you do your assignments?
No, I can imagine that having money, having a home, and not having the motivation to go to school. I think that's more challenging from where I'm coming from. No? So that's big. So how many students have you been able to love and nurture this way?
I think throughout the years about 500, and
Whoa.
600. Right now we have a group of 250 kids.
As of this moment,
As of
currently,
this moment,
you're
yeah.
juggling the lives of 250
Yeah,
kids.
yeah,
But over the years, you've done
I
500.
think 500-600 over the years.
And
yes.
most of your support came from
Holland.
From
yeah.
Holland,
Yeah.
Okay, great. And so these people are now going to government schools in the neighborhood of Tondo and other schools, right?
That's right. So we do recognize, that the government schools have some limitations as well. So in that sense, having the student center where the kids can go to and get some extra remedial classes, for instance in English or mathematics.
So they come back to the
they-
student center.
They come back to the student center. We have mandatory lessons actually on certain days.
Like homework.
And Anne is teaching English there.
Oh, applaud. Yeah.
We do recognize that there are limitations there in the school, so that's why just the sponsorship to schools, so providing the bags and the school materials, is not enough. So therefore we have that student center with the computer room, with a
I
place
have
where they
raised
can do
3
homework.
kids and I know how it is. So tell me, 250 kids, my gosh.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
So it is a and that what we shared earlier, that goes together with the real coaching guidance by a social worker. Working with the families, working with the parents as well, giving kind of parents formation as we call it.
They
Just
need
telling
it too.
them
They need it
important is to send the kids to school, perseverance. So it's a whole package, a whole holistic approach in a way to education.
So both of you are hands-on. You, besides your photography and besides your web design.
Well, I'm more managing the project
So
actually.
you're more hands-on. How big is the rest of your support staff or team? Do you have foreigners in it, Filipinos in it?
No, we're the only foreigners
You're
with
the
a.
only
Weirdos.
Indian-looking people. You're the only expats. You're the only expats.
As they say in the Philippines, ang puso ko at Filipino talaga.
Ano
So
yun
it's-
ulit? Ulit mo.
So my heart is Filipino,
Ang
right?
puso mo
Ang puso ko,
Pinoy,
ha?
pero ang
Oo.
katawan mo
Tama.
hindi.
Tama.
Sige.
So
Okay.
indeed, the outside looks kind of white, I guess. But we got a group of 16 staff, and they're all Filipinos, and they're all real committed people to help their own people. So it's quite an exciting group.
So these kids will come out speaking good English, or English or
It's the
Dutch
goal.
English
It's
or
the
Filipino.
objective. I mean, of course,
that's
it's
the
always
goal.
a challenge.
I tease them, I joke with them, and I tell them, I'm going to teach you better English than your teachers can
Better
speak.
than international school in Fort
You're going because these kids are always wrestling with an unfair disadvantage. We feel it's time they have some unfair advantages.
It's needed.
But it's the crazy thing for me personally is that I've taught English in Holland for about 10 years to adults, and
To
mostly
grown-ups like me who
yes,
need help,
Dutch, but mostly Dutch businessmen, running big
So
companies.
was
and
some of
everything.
them balding like I am?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
And but the crazy thing is, you find that what they were wrestling with in Holland and what a kid from a garbage dump wrestles with is the same.
It's the same challenge.
It's the same challenge, and that is self-confidence. When it comes to speaking a second language, if you lose your fear and start enjoying it, then you're flying.
I want to join that school.
Yes, we
Can
try
I
and make it
come?
fun.
Do you-
Yes.
Would you take
Sure.
me in?
Absolutely.
Would you take me in? I would love to come and attend the
No,
few
you
classes.
come, but that's what we sometimes do when we have visitors. They're just part of the class, because the idea is that we turn the class into a kind of like TV quiz show, and they're having fun competing against each other because they have enough school.
I want to be taught English by you.
Like,
Question: do you have any shining example of success in all your efforts? Is there a student who has stood out and has kind of changed the image and the personality of students coming out from that neighborhood? Do you have somebody, a Leah Salonga or
Not
Manny
yet.
Pacquiao?
Not quite
No,
yet.
not for boxing, but Manny Pacquiao for English.
Yeah.
We haven't got any boxing lessons there, but
I'm just kidding. What I meant is a success story.
no, I think one of the girls that recently graduated, actually 2 years ago, she graduated and she I think she wanted to become an architect at first.
Okay.
And then it turned into computer science. So
Yeah.
then she said, okay, I really want to work, in a computer store, or at least do some.
Yeah.
She ended up in a private primary school, elementary school,
Yeah.
teaching computer education. So instead of working herself with computers, she's actually educating other children.
She's
A
imparting the
private
knowledge.
school. Yeah.
And she's really truly enjoying herself. This is, I guess, one of the kids. But
So how long do you hold their hands? How long do you nurture these kids until they're teenagers or out of high school, or wait until they become grandparents?
Well, what is really important, even when they graduate from college, that doesn't mean that they're ready for society.
That's what I'm saying. Grandparents
Right.
sometimes need
So
help.
we do have a group what they call young professionals. So after that, we keep in touch with them. Twice a year they will report to us, or we just have a meeting together. We just ask them how they're doing. At the same time, we ask them if they can encourage the younger kids. Others from college
so
or
you're
high school.
creating a community that's going to
Really,
grow and
because
multiply on its own.
it's also a human need in a way to feel part of it, especially when you're a teenager.
You
want to be
have
part
a
of
beautiful
something.
story to tell to the world.
So
I
that-
swear to you. I'm glad I brought you on this show. I'm really happy. Do you have competition? Do you have somebody? Let's not call it competition. Do you have people in the country? Are there any other NGOs who are doing stuff similar to yours? Is there a match? Is there a possible merger that you can make it grow?
What we usually see is that people are sponsoring kids to go to school,
Yeah.
and there's a very few that actually go a bit further
Yeah.
and has that coaching part and that the social part to it.
Yeah.
There's not that many doing that actually. But we do what we do is
Yeah.
working with other organizations and working with other organizations that can go further than just education. Like we're partnering with one organization that has a good resources in the business world. So whenever we have a graduated student, we can go to them and say, you guys, you have a job for this student. So it's a network with other organizations and companies, and therefore plugging in our people in there.
So what does the future hold for Young Focus, Anne? What's your vision long term? Where do you want to take it? How far do you want to take it?
I would like to see an increase in number of kids, of course. I mean, there are loads of kids out there on Smoky Mountain and surroundings in the smaller areas.
Yeah.
At the same time, I would like to see it franchise as well, the system. Not necessarily that we have to own it, as long
Young
as other
Focus
people.
franchises.
As long as other people can really copy
Yeah.
that model and say, we don't have anything to do with it. For us, the objective is that kids will develop the talents and their gifts, so that they will be able to find a job, will be able to take care of their families, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be under Young Focus, as long as we can be an example, maybe to other organizations or
be a
churches
benchmark.
who said, "Hey, I like that formula. It is successful. Let's also go for that." So it's more like a multiplication of the concept of the holistic approach.
What will sorry to ask you this, no? What will this do for you, Anne and Paul, when you do achieve what you want to do, whatever you're building? How will you feel at the end of this?
Life.
I'm not saying not just alive. I mean, what kind of fulfillment would you feel? How do you see 20, 15 years from today, or whatever your time frame is, really? Anne,
the main feeling is gratefulness. I mean, because we've gone through sickness and all kinds of stuff. That's another interview. But this is all grace. This is all amazing. It feels, quite honestly, that what's happening with Young Folks, it's bigger than us. This is not even our idea. We started like this down here with a little support group.
Yeah.
We had no concept. We had no idea of how far it would go.
Yeah.
I have a feeling that someone upstairs is organising things, and
The
we
good
have
Lord, the good
we
Lord,
have
yeah.
the privilege of being part of it. So, yes, we're just thrilled to be part of something like this.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to help Paul and Anne, Wijgerden.
Pretty good.
Wijgerden, right? Wijgerden.
Yeah.
This is their website. This is your website.
This is the website.
Yeah?
This is the website.
This is the website. And is there anything you need to ask them, request them, put out about Young Focus, besides having shared these wonderful stories about your success and your purpose in life?
Yeah, we're very open to visitors, volunteers.
Yeah.
If you have a skill and you want to share some your skill with, and do a workshop, for example,
Right.
or just come and see what we're doing and get some ideas.
Any address, Student Center, Tondo,
Yes.
Student Center.
Well, if you go
Tondo?
to this website, you will get all the information you need.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Youngfocus.org.
Yes.
Now, both of you do speak Tagalog, no?
I speak a tiny bit.
You speak
Paul,
Tag and he speaks Alog.
yes, well, but T
No,
is
my
not always
Tagalog is not that fluent. I mean, not like yours. But I mean, I'll
Not like
do
mine,
my
not like mine. I don't speak any Tagalog. Now we have 1 minute each, no? So you want to try your hand at Tagalog and thank your sponsors and put out your vision into the world. The TV camera is yours. You can talk about Young Focus and about going Dutch over poverty. But I really applaud what you do. So 1 minute for both of you on TV. There it is.
You go ahead.
It's the time to be. It's the time to blush and be shy.
No, can I do it in English?
You can do it in English. I'm just kidding.
My
I'm just
Tagalog
kidding.
is shameful. Yeah, that we want people to know that we are not martyrs, we are not heroes. We are here because we want to live here. We love this culture. We love being here. I've seen also with Paul the ability to and the freedom to be more yourself in this country, in this culture, than in your home culture, and to have that, to be able to live here as well as work here and see what amazing things God is doing with the young people in this nation. Wow, we have the best job in the universe.
Wonderful. You, Mr. Paul.
Yeah, I think I feel extremely privileged to be part of this. And if you know a little bit about my history, you know it's quite messy. A lot of things happened because of sickness that I experienced in Holland.
Hey, we don't know your history.
Sorry?
You're talking to someone out there who knows your history? The people in
the camera, right?
Oh, okay. All right.
But anyway, between 1994 and 2008, you know, I went through a nervous breakdown. Being here now, it's just a tremendous privilege, and I really want you guys to see what we are doing. I mean, just send us an email, paul@youngfocus.org. Can you see that?
Zoom in. Thanks
Of course, the website www.youngfocus.org. You get all the information there, and if you do write something there, it will come into our mailbox, so we'll reply straight away.
So salamat and mabuhay,
Salamat po.
and thank you for being on Expat Inside. It was great
Thank you.
talking to you, and you do a wonderful job, and Godspeed and good luck in everything you do, and hopefully, not really hopefully, surely you will change the world slowly, one person at a time. God bless.
Thank you.
So that's Paul and Anne VW. I really have a hard time pronouncing Wijgerden. So Paul and Anne Wijgerden of Young Focus. Thank you for watching Expat Insights, and we'll see you next Sunday. I'm your host Raju Mandhyan. Good night and mabuhay.